Hello, and in this recording we're going to take a look at Father Returning Home by Dilip Chitre. Dilip Chitre was one of the foremost Indian writers and critics of post-independence India. He wrote in both English and Marathi, which was his mother tongue. Father Returning Home is a short and appealing poem about an old man in a cosmopolitan city where his own children treat him almost as an alien. He himself is estranged from the modern man-made world, and throughout this poem Chitre has denounced urban ruthlessness and alienation. My father travels on the late evening train, standing among silent commuters in the yellow light. Suburbs slide past his unseeing eyes. His shirt and pants are soggy, and his black raincoat stained with mud, and his bag stuffed with books is falling apart. His eyes, dimmed by age, fade homeward through the humid monsoon night. So the fact that this is happening in the late evening suggests the father is returning home late from work. And this interesting description, using the adjective yellow light and humid monsoon night, suggests a twilight, not quite dark, but stifling atmosphere. What are we to make of the father's appearance and perspective here? He's looking out the window with unseeing eyes. His clothes are soggy, stained with mud. His eyes are dimmed by age. And his look fades towards homeward. So his father's appearance is unkempt. His eyes are unseeing, both maybe literally in the sense of having poor eyesight, and also metaphorically, and then he pays no attention to or struggles to comprehend the sprawling suburbs that are spread around the city that he presumably grew up in or was used to. Metaphorically, the bag stuffed with books falling apart might actually represent his own acquired experience and intellect and his failing lucidity. So the books are representative of those years of knowledge that he's gained and his experiences, and the bag containing them might be representative of his mind that's failing to contain or make sense or order all of these thoughts. The effect of the sibilance in these lines: travels, stands, silent, commuters, suburbs, slide past, etc. A very particular effect, perhaps suggesting the lulling effect of the sound of the train and or of the rain that we imagine is falling. Now I can see him getting off the train, like a word dropped from a long sentence. He hurries across the length of the grey platform, crosses the railway line, enters the lane. His chappals are sticky with mud, but he hurries onward. So we have a simile here, dropped, like a word dropped from a long sentence. And this has perhaps given us the sense that the father is in some way surplus to requirements. It may also be a reference to what might have been hinted at, the bag full of books, of a failing memory, something that's superfluous, not required, or not often, not easily remembered. There's a cumulative effect of the three verbs in these two lines: hurries, crosses, enters, and these three verbs in quick succession seem to give an indication of the efforts that he still has to make to get home after the train journey, and also to convey a sense of urgency. This is someone who wants to, after a long day of work, reach his home. The verb hurries is repeated, and this also emphasizes that fact that this is a figure who wants to reach his home. Impression of his chapal sticky with mud. These are unpaved streets, presumably, and we get that sensation of mud oozing through his sandal-like footwear. So again, perhaps he's not. His home is not in a particularly prosperous area. Home again, I see him drinking weak tea, eating a stale chapati, reading a book. He goes into the toilet to contemplate man's estrangement from a man-made world. Coming out, he trembles at the sink, the cold water running over his brown hands. A few droplets cling to the greying hairs on his wrists. Again, a temporal adverb, maybe given a sense of the relief he feels at finally reaching his home, but again also that sense of a repetitive action, perhaps hinting at the banality of his life. The fact that he only has weak tea to drink, he's eating a stale chapati. Here we've got a lack of vitality, warmth, freshness, or care in this man's life. Perhaps this is hinting at the lack of care his family feel for him, or it could be as a result of his economic circumstances. Drinking, eating, reading, going to the toilet. The verbs here all suggest a rather mundane existence. And it seems odd there that he goes into the toilet to contemplate. Is the suggestion here that the toilet is his only refuge from his family after travelling home, seemingly to be in such a rush to get home? Is the bathroom the only place he can go to sort of collect his thoughts? And when he does think, he considers man's estrangement from a man-made world. In one line, this is the essence of the poem. You might want to think about how you could explain it to someone. For example, is he doing all this work? Is he committing his life to this modern world that he barely understands? Is he going out to work for these long hours for a family he has little connection left with? Those might be the sort of things you could consider as the main themes of the poem. Then we have the fact that he trembles at the sink. Mention the cold water again, perhaps suggesting economic circumstances that they don't have hot water, and that these last few droplets cling to the hairs on his wrists. What is being suggested here? Is it infirmity? Is it the man's fatigue? Is it the fear of something having contemplated man's estrangement from a man-made world? Is the washing of his hands at the sink almost ritualistic in an attempt to purify himself? Look, why have we got these adjectives? His brown hands, his greying hairs. What do these suggest? Perhaps a suggestion of labour. His hands are dark and tanned from working manually. The greying hairs may be a sense of his advancing age. His sullen children have often refused to share jokes and secrets with him. He will now go to sleep, listening to the static on the radio, dreaming of his ancestors and grandchildren, thinking of nomads entering a subcontinent through a narrow pass. So sullen children, this adjective might tell us something about his relationships with the rest of his family. The fact that they refuse to share jokes and secrets with him suggests perhaps even a lack of communication, or more than that, level of irritation with each other. This refusal suggests a kind of denial. The jokes may be standing for happiness, the secrets for trust. So he's not really in a position that one may assume that a father would have in a family of being involved in both the happiness and the secrets, as it were, that the family might have to share. We will now go to sleep listening to the static on the radio. Might this represent something else? Why static on the radio rather than a channel, songs or something? Well, maybe the idea here is that he lives such a life bereft of human interaction. We don't know about his work. There's no interaction on his commute home. He doesn't seem to have a connection with his family. He is not even listening to another human voice on the radio as he falls asleep, just static. Is the suggestion perhaps that all that is left to him at this point in terms of consolation is the peace at the end of his life, as it were? Or is the radio just this poor substitution for human company? Perhaps the static is also symbolic of the father's lack of comprehension of the modern world. He can't make out the messages and communications and interactions involved in living in the modern world. All he hears metaphorically is static. We've got some contrasting images then of ancestors and grandchildren. These fill his dreams. This gives a particular ending to the poem. I think it could be read in either a positive or negative light. So in his dreams we have the father maybe realizing his purpose and place in terms of the heritage of his family. That's maybe a more positive suggestion. Or another way of looking at it is that he's maybe suffering from some kind of existential angst. He's questioning the meaning of his life and maybe finding that his life doesn't seem to have any great meaning in the context of all of those who've come before his ancestors and all those in his family who will go after. Thank you very much for listening. Remember that your own reading of the poem is just as valid as someone else's. Try and include your own ideas and your own analysis. As long as you can support those ideas with reference to the text, then your reading of the poem, as I said, is as valid as anyone else's. I hope you found this useful, and do look out for the other videos on my channel. Thank you very much.